Hello, welcome to Runnings from the Hills. I'm Lori. This week we are spotlighting a Parchment of Leaves. This is by Silas House. He has wrote many books on Appalachia. Clay's Quilt, Coal Tattoo is a couple of his other novels. This is set in the 1900s rural mountain Kentucky. This is a story of Sullivan, who marries a Cherokee girl named Vine. And this is about some of the trials and tribulations they face trying to live together in that time period. The book starts out with a quote by James Steele from I Was Born Humble. There is so much writ upon the parchment of leaves, so much of beauty blown upon the winds. I can but fold my hands and sink my knees in the leaf of the pages. The prologue. There is much talk that spring of the Cherokee girl who was able to invoke curses on anyone passing her threshold. Several men had ventured into the place called the Red Camp and had come back either dead or badly mauled. One man was killed when he walked off the high cliff and was shattered on the rocks in the gorge below. It was widely reported that every bone in his body was broken. Another, hired to burn out the heavy brush near the summit, was struck by an unlucky wind that caught his clothes afire and burned most of his body, including his face. A young man claimed that his axe was overtaken by a spirit in mid-swing and came down to chop off the toes of his left foot. The men who died on the mountain went to their graves knowing what had really happened, and since all the men who had survived were either married or betrothed, they too were unable to tell the true reason for their misfortune. They had been possessed by a Cherokee girl standing at her gate, but she had not done it intentionally. The truth was this: her beauty had so transfixed their thoughts that they could not keep their minds on the work at hand. They could think of nothing but her eyes, round and black as berries, and her brown arms propped up the slats of the paling fence. They saw her strong jawbone curving toward her chin, her blue-black hair flapping behind her like clothes hung out to dry. They were mesmerized by the image they had caught of her, and they carried it up the mountain in such a way that they neglected to watch where they were walking, or the angle of their axes, or the intensity of the fire they built. But most of the people around those parts had not been to Red Bud Camp and knew nothing of the girl's paralyzing looks. They reckoned she was simply able to conjure curses and hexes. All the men had spoken of her in the wild pain when they were being doctored, and the rumors of the girl witch began to fly. She had a perfectly good motive anyway. Tate Masters was one of the richest men in the nearby town in Black Banks, and he owned all the land on the head of the Red Bud Camp. He had decided to build himself a mansion in the mountain's crest, and Masters had made it well known that his plan was to run the Cherokees off. The Cherokees demanded that Masters prove he owned the mountain by producing a deed. Their families had settled on Red Bud Camp nearly 80 years before, and no one had questioned their claim to the land until now. He had made no proof of ownership, but he didn't have to. None of the clerks or the magistrates would hear the Cherokees' complaints. He was left free to build, and Masters hired team after team of men to go and clear the land, but to no avail. After so many men were killed or hurt on the mountain, and word began to spread that it was the hands of the Cherokee girl, no one would go back. Well, that is just the start of A Parchment of Leaves by Silas House. If you would like to read this, you can request a copy by going to our website at www.briggslibrary.com or by calling any of our locations to request a copy. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you next time.